How to pass the AKU entry test. Let's first discuss the format. As discussed in one of my previous videos, the entry test consists of 5 sections. A biology section consisting of 15 MCQs, a chemistry section consisting of 15 MCQs as well, a physics section consisting of 15 MCQs, followed by a scientific reasoning section of 20 MCQs, and lastly, a mathematical reasoning section of 20 MCQs as well. The total time allotted for this paper is 2 hours. Now let's discuss the key points about the format. Remember that when you get the result for this test, the chemistry, biology, and physics sections are made into a cumulative score, and the mathematical and scientific reasoning sections are also made to give a cumulative score. What that means is, when you will get the result for this entry test, yes, your individual sections will be marked and your percentage will be given. However, what Aga Khan University looks at is the cumulative score that you make in all chemistry, physics, and biology sections, and the cumulative score you make in the mathematical and scientific section. And then compare this by the standard cumulative score. So you get 2 cumulative scores. I will call the above one the science cumulative and the below one the reasoning cumulative. If you surpass the standard cumulative score, which they make up looking at the statistics for that given year, then you will be given and called for an interview. Remember that the standard cumulative score does vary for every single year. However, if I were to give you a rough idea, then the science cumulative ranges from about 65 to 75%, and the reasoning cumulative ranges from about 70 to 75%. For example, for the year 2020, the science cumulative was 70% and the reasoning cumulative was 74%. That is, you had to surpass both of these cumulatives to be called for the interview. Now, how does one prep for the Aga Khan entry test? My suggestion, like in all other videos, is first of all, strengthen your base. Whether you are from a metric/FSC background or a O/A level background, the first thing that you need to do is clear your concepts for that particular program. Once you are confident with your base, then move to the SAT-2. And I cannot stress enough how important the SAT-2 is, irrespective of whether you have done FSC or A levels. However, for A level students, I would recommend that do go about the FSC. If you cannot do FSC completely, which is something I do not recommend as well, do go over some particular topics that I'm about to mention in the later part of the video. Here is the flow chart that I can make. Actually, a planning chart. If you have an A-level background, then this is something that you should follow. First do A-level. When you're confident with that, then do the SAT-2s. And if you have enough time, then do the FSC books. The overview of FSC is enough, but I will put particular emphasis on these chapters. For biology, do the animal kingdom. For physics, do light and lens. And for chemistry, do the organic chemistry. Now, although some of these things are discussed in A-levels program as well, the knowledge given in that program is more or less limited. In FSC, there's a lot of vast knowledge present on each of these particular topics. And therefore, even if you have covered the SAT-2s, I would still recommend do biology, animal kingdom, and do organic chemistry for chemistry. Now, if you are from an FSC background, then once you have done the FSC, go about the SAT-2. Now, FSC is based more on memorization of facts rather than application of knowledge. And that is why I cannot stress enough on how important the SAT-2 is. because the Aga Khan University entry test is based on concepts, and the SAT 2 will exactly test that. Therefore, you should practice, 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 and practice. The SAT 2 books are the best resource to utilize. Now let's move on to planning. First of all, know your strengths. If you had not done math in your secondary higher education, and if you had not given the SAT 1, then I definitely recommend that re-evaluate your strengths and start by your weaknesses. Start by math, that is. Then decide beforehand how will you actually go about the test. Sit down one day, take a piece of a paper, you know the number of MCQs that are going to come in each section, and just dictate to yourself the way that you will allot your time and the way that you will go about the test. But then again, I always recommend be flexible about your plan while attempting, because some unpredicted and uncertain things can always happen with standardized tests. Give your first 5 to 10 minutes to skimming. Skim through the paper and evaluate the difficulty of each section so that you can plan ahead. Then give 1 to 2 minutes to each MCQ and 15 to 20 minutes to each section. This will leave you with almost probably 10 to 15 minutes at the end as well to make any good guesses if you can. But mind that there is negative marking in this test. That is, 0.25 marks will be deducted for each time you answer a question wrong. Now, although in other tests, for example the SPA SSC entry test, there is negative marking as well. However, the impact of that negative marking is low relative to the Aga Khan University entry test. This is because there are only 15 MCQs in the science sections. So, if you're deducting 1.25 marks for each answer that you answer wrong, then that will be some heavy loss. This is why be particularly focused on attempting the MCQs. Whether you should or should not is a critical decision you will make during the exam. This has always been my general plan. My first category MCQs are MCQs that I know for sure that is no doubt about the correct answer. And that is what I do first. Then I have my second category MCQs. These are MCQs that I am somewhat confident with, but I do not completely know if this is the right answer, because sometimes in the exam you are confused between two choices. And lastly, my third category MCQs are that I know absolutely nothing about, and this will happen in standardized tests. All you need to do is skip those MCQs. Now, my personal suggestion would be that in your physics, chemistry, and biology section, which entails 15 MCQs, try your best to at least be confident, that is, try your best to have at least 7 to 9 MCQs that you can place in category number 1. That is MCQs you are completely sure about. This leaves you with a margin to make 2 to 3 good guesses, that is the second category. And even if you're leaving about 3 to 4 MCQs or 2 to 3 MCQs in each section, you will still be able to pass the standardized cumulative score. Trust me. This is not about answering all questions right. This is about answering enough questions right that will allow you to pass the standardized cumulative score. Now, when do you actually start prepping for this? As they say, the earlier the better. But I would say do give 1 to 2 months to this test. Now let's come to my story, something that everyone is interested to know about. And like any other video that I do not recommend doing this. The interesting part is that I was already enrolled in another institution when the Aga Khan University entry test happened, and I was not really into it. What I mean by that is, I had never planned on becoming a doctor, and therefore I was not very serious about this entry test. I only started studying for it when my semester in another institution had already started and I was already in those studying atmosphere. This means I had wasted all of my quarantine. While other aspiring medical students were studying hard, I was relaxing. I had last studied my A-levels in March, and mind that this was September, so I had only 2 to 3 weeks before the Aga Khan entry test, which was scheduled to take place on October 4th. And alongside, I also had my semester workload, which I had to take good care of and ensure that I was also scoring decent in it. However, in this limited time that I had, I did the SAT2 for chemistry, leaving out 3 chapters, SAT2 for biology, leaving out 1 chapter, and I did the AS and A2 revision of A-levels for physics. The reason why I did such limited revision was because of the shorter time that I had. And also to tell you that I had never studied the SAT2s before this, even for the SBA SSC entry test. So this was the first time that I was actually doing the SAT2. I gave almost 4 to 5 days to each of this. Now, the best thing about the AKU entry test is that it is conceptual. That is, unlike any other exams, it is focused less on facts and more on application. And I do believe that this is the sole reason why I was able to score well. This means that it does not really matter how vast or how limited your current knowledge is. What matters is how clear are your concepts with whatever knowledge you have. But the one thing that I definitely recommend is doing the SAT2 papers. Practice the questions from there as they are based on application rather than knowledge. Well, let's not also forget that there are 2 other sections in the AKU test, the math reasoning and the scientific reasoning. For math reasoning, SAT1 math is the best resource to utilize. Now, because I had A-level maths and I had given the SAT1 in my A2, I was not super concerned about this particular section of the test, and I actually found it quite easy. For the scientific reasoning section, well, your prep for the other science sections would be more than enough for here as well. This just entails more math and more application, which to be honest will be covered if you do the SAT2 papers. Now, if you are amongst those students who had not given the SAT1 and had not studied maths in A-levels or FSC, then do the SAT1 papers. And remember that in the SAT1 there are 2 sections for maths, and I would suggest doing both of those because the questions are definitely similar. Now, if you like this video, subscribe to the channel, give this video a thumbs up, and for now, bye bye.